the street, learned nuclear physics, and ended up running a nuclear power plant, which I love doing. I'm an action guy. But because I'm focused on operations, everything that I look at is how do you build something, and are the principles behind it? Is there a process behind it? I have just loved this morning. I mean, Dave and I have known each other for a while, and I feel like we're not just brothers of the, different brothers of the same mother. I feel like we're twins. I mean, so much of what you share is stuff that's going on in my mind, and so I've loved listening to the different stories. I want to talk a little bit about a systematic approach to new philanthropy. We've been thinking about social justice and social responsibility, and we've been talking about business, and we've been talking about helping people, and how do you do all that at the same time? I ended up running a nonprofit for about 15 years, worked in 150 countries. I like to say we learned 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. I mean, when we were trying to help people, everything we did, ultimately, when you're trying to help people, you're trying to look for ways to make a lasting impact, sustainable change. So, the idea of helping people is not just about giving them something, but creating impact that is sustainable and helping them over the long run. And so what we found with handouts is that when you give people free stuff, you destroy their dignity. You stifle creativity and create a significant amount of dependency. And so we got to the point of doing humanitarian work. We actually changed the name of our organization because we realized giving people free stuff actually destroyed them. That was a hard lesson. 15 years, we gave away millions of dollars, and we found that none of it did much good until we landed on a couple things that really made a difference. One was disaster preparedness and response, which was another form of sustainability, like continuity of operations or contingency planning. And the other thing was business development and job creation. So we ended up starting thousands of businesses in many different countries, and those businesses helped, but they were all small, micro businesses, and we really were looking for innovation, fast growth, scalable companies. So we moved from handouts. We found that the number one need in the world was not health, was not water, was not education, even though we did those things. We found that the number one need in the world was a good job. Because with a good job, you have access to all those other things. People want to be able to take care of and provide for their families. And we found that when we were creating jobs, we were unlocking creativity. We were creating interdependency and the ability to be sustainable. We were helping people in totally different ways by creating new jobs. So the greatest form of charity, the best form of philanthropy, is really about creating a new job. And so here's the challenge in the business world today. The opportunity is that more businesses will be created in the next 20 years than all of history combined. Now that's a massive statement, but the acceleration today of tools and technology and trends, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that later on today, is so rapid. We have massive growth of businesses being started. The barriers to entry are lower than they've ever been. And so here's the problem, though. Many entrepreneurs will attempt to launch and scale their business by trial and error, reading some books, maybe watching some videos, listening to entrepreneurs tell their stories. The sad part is most will not survive. And so if we're looking at the whole concept of business startup, which is a great way to help people and create philanthropy and lead to job creation, and it's good to make profits and we can help other people start more businesses. But the problem is most people that start up their companies will not survive. That's the statistics. So we need a new educational system for entrepreneurs. The current educational system, the formal educational system, is a tenured monopoly controlled by credentialing. And so you go to a college, you get a degree, and that controls. It's the system for entrepreneurship training has been similar to the regular educational approach. The problem is entrepreneurs are so different. We're looking for a system that's anti-credentialing almost. I mean, if you don't graduate from high school and you're successful as an entrepreneur, you're even more of a hero because you don't have any background in the educational system. It's merit-based. You get a PhD and get stuff done. You know, entrepreneurs are a very different group. And so we need a different educational system to teach them. You know, I love Tina, you can just go out and do it. There's a lot to learn, and failing fast is a big part of it. But we need a different educational system for entrepreneurs. And by the way, when you look at MIT and Harvard and Yale and Stanford and all these other colleges, their competition for entrepreneurship training is not another university. Their competition is groups like Praxis and Y Combinator and Techstars that are accelerators that will bring you into their program and start up a business in-house. I mean, that's the competition for entrepreneurship training today because it's a different educational system. And so we have this crisis in entrepreneurship education. We have this massive demand for training. We have this massive growth of company startups. The barriers are lower than entry, but we have this huge gap between supply and demand, which today is filled by storytelling. And storytelling is not a substitute for a systematic approach to entrepreneurship. And so Bill Owlett at MIT, Sloan School of Management, and Bill has so many other things under his leadership, wrote a book called Disciplined Entrepreneurship, a systematic approach based on 25 years and 25,000 startups. I mean, here's a group that if you tallied up the money that they have produced, they would be the 11th most wealthy entity on the planet. And so they know a few things. They've learned a few things about startup and failure and process. And being an operations guy, I'm always looking for what's that process or that principle-based approach. And that's why, David, I love what you shared because that's the way I think. And if I can think through steps that make sense and they're logical, I can repeat that and I can teach other people to repeat that. And everything I listen to, everything I read, everything I do, I'm a trainer at my core. And so I take notes because I'm going to teach what Dave taught and what others have said. So I love the MIT approach that they came up with on disciplined entrepreneurship, and you can see this thing weaves all over the place because entrepreneurship training is systematic in some ways, it's iterative all the time, it's spiraling towards specificity, you just get better and better at doing it, and it's cumulative. It's kind of like putting your hand on the hot stove and burning it, you won't do it again. And entrepreneurship training is cumulative, and you learn from it, and as you learn something new, it spirals you back to the front end to fix your model again, and it's continuous. So what we did is one other thought, Steve Jobs said, it's more fun to be a pirate than it is to join the Navy. And I think that's the way we think as entrepreneurs. It's a whole lot more fun to be a pirate than it is to join the Navy. But at the same time, you got to have the spirit of a pirate, but you got to have the skills of a Navy SEAL to be successful in entrepreneurship. You need both. It's a totally different environment, a totally different education system. And when we run our Entrepreneurship Bootcamp, this is the logo we put on our coffee cup, because you got to know, every day you got to have the spirit of a pirate as well as this set of skills of a Navy SEAL. And so our solution at the Leadership Institute for Entrepreneurs is a real-time value-based training that's it's merit-based, it's real-world value. We're an MIT partner. We went to MIT, was certified to train their Global Entrepreneurship Bootcamp, and our bootcamp is the closest thing to a real-life startup you can experience. In 5 days, we go from an idea all the way to a business launch. We run from 7 in the morning to midnight. It's not for the faint of heart. but I'll tell you what, it changes your life. We have all the dynamics of the team intensity, meeting up with people you've never met before and going through all the dynamics that you face. We talk about all that in the front end, about the conflict you're going to face when it's like the fourth night and you've pivoted 4 times and you got to present to real investors tomorrow morning. How well does your team get along? How do you deal with that? We go through so much, but it's the idea of learning this process, but experiencing all the dynamics. Our boot camp is made up of 3 short courses, which I have heard in a lot of the discussions that we've already talked about. The first day is called Identity-Driven Entrepreneurship. And we go through this discussion about who are you? Because we want to build a company based on who we are. And so we go through an assessment process of, we use a tool that's been used quite a bit. It's proven out of Japan called Ikigai, which really translates to why do you get up in the morning? It looks at 4 basic questions. What do you love to do? What are you good at? What can you get paid for? And what does the world need? And when you start looking at an assessment of all of your gifts and skills and talents and history and lessons learned and assets, begin to understand who you are and then apply that to your business. We redefine work and business and stewardship and profit and wealth, and even looking at the concept of work. We ask people, how many of you know you have a gift? And all over the world I ask people that, and everybody knows they have some gift. And I'll tell them, do you know that your gift is not for you? They'll look at me like, what are you talking about? Your gift has been given you to serve other people. I mean, that's the plug and play of humanity. We're made to connect with one another, and we connect by serving other people with the gift that we have. And that's the foundation of work, because a worker is worthy of his wages. So as you serve others with your gift and you get remuneration, now we find purpose in life. So we go through identity, we go through purpose, we go through destiny. And I don't know if you know, destiny is a team sport. You can't achieve your destiny without being part of a team. And so we want to build a company that's identity driven. We want to build a company that aligns with our passion and our purpose and our gift to serve others. So we go through all that in the class. That's just day 1. In the cultural alignment, the values alignment. Then we get into all the disciplined entrepreneurship practices learned out of MIT on the 2nd and 3rd day called disciplined entrepreneurship. We get into the concepts of being anti-fragile and gritty. Anti-fragile, can you take a punch and get up stronger? Does failure make you stronger? Not just recover from it, but it actually strengthens you when you fail. It's a different mindset. In the concept of grit, the rapid cycle of doing hard things, and the more you do hard things, the easier it gets. Those of you that are parents can relate. The first one was the hardest. After you have it, the second one's a little easier, the third one's a little easier. And doing hard things over and over again is a skill you can learn. Anti-fragile is a mindset. Grit is a skill you can learn. All the entrepreneurship skills can be learned. So entrepreneurship can be taught. There is no gene. There is just a bunch of things you need to learn, and you can learn the hard way or the easy way, but it's all things that can be taught. And then the last day we get into entrepreneurship operations, things that deal with your people and your partnerships, your culture and your leadership, learning and innovation, which is a survival skill, critical processes like customer management, financial management, performance management, all skills that can be learned. But the whole idea is that we want to help create anti-fragile, gritty entrepreneurs. So one last thought as I close here, a story. There's a group that we're working with in Denver called Emergent Brands. Emergent Brands started off with the first company called Unbridled Solutions. Unbridled Solutions now has launched 11 companies out of their staff. Their goal is to launch 100. They want to transform cities by unlocking creativity and entrepreneurship in their company. And so they find people that are culture fit for their organization, and then they look to what is their purpose and their gifting, and they try to unlock that, thrive, and start businesses. So they want to actually start 100 businesses out of this mother startup that was called Unbridled Solutions. I was going to say mother company. but then they formed Emergent Brands as the overarching entity. So they're an in-house incubator, and I love what they're doing in helping people in the company start companies. Their culture is built around three things: collaboration of destinies, a culture of authenticity, and radical generosity. So destiny being a sport, a team sport, they talk about collaboration and that we steward each other's destinies within the organization. It's a radical way of thinking. And then this idea of authenticity, showing up in who you are, understanding who you are, showing up in your identity, and being able to engage people from who you are and your purpose and your gifting and your skill set. And then radical generosity. Their model is actually a 20-20-60 model. They take the first 20% and they give it. The second 20% is set aside for emergencies, so they're never caught off guard. And the other 60% is used to either profit, distribution, or back into the company. So they have a very cool model. They've engaged their people, and they're transforming the city. They're becoming so successful that the city's actually starting to come to them to look for solutions to problems. One of them that they're working on right now is student loan debt. And they have got a radical model to deal with student loan debt. But their success, they're in an industry where the average turnover rate, we all know the stories of millennials and the turnover rates being now every 2.5 years that millennials change jobs instead of every 3. But they're in an industry that has a 40+% turnover per quarter. And they're running less than 15% over 5 years. They're running 30% year-on-year growth, year-over-year growth. They've given away $1.5 million, and they're 20% of their staff are owners, equity owners in the companies that they're starting. And they just keep on going. So as an example of a successful culture around the stuff that we're talking about, identity-driven entrepreneurship, a set of skills on understanding how to take an idea from all the way from idea to a business startup, and then how to actually run an organization. It's interesting, I did research across 8 different market segments when we built the Leadership Institute for Entrepreneurs. I found that one of the number one needs across all segments that I interviewed, whether they were organizations, networks, venture capitalists, foundations, churches, business leaders, one of the number one needs across all those segments was deal flow. There's a ton of money out there, like Tina said. There's very few good businesses. There's a million ideas, especially in our relational circles, but very few people can take those ideas and make businesses out of them. And that's what we want to teach people to do. I'll just end with a little thing for you, David. I don't know if you know, Dave, you said you studied Greek and Hebrew. There's a term called tzedakah in the Greek, or in the Hebrew, which is actually a term for the best form of philanthropy or charitable giving. And that term is that the best form of philanthropy is to give money to help somebody else start a job. And I thought that was a very cool thought, that the best philanthropy, here's a whole culture that believes the best philanthropy is to help somebody start a business. And so I'm very excited about all of you that are here today. I'm excited about meeting new people, reconnecting with old friends around the idea of not just entrepreneurship, but social justice and social impact, corporate social responsibility, that we can make a difference by starting companies. And what I'd sure like to do is change the equation a little bit, that we don't see 90% of them fail, but we see 90% of them be successful, that we've actually failed in the class multiple times, figured out this business won't work because the business model, the pricing framework, cost of customer acquisition, lifetime value, understanding our customer, all those things we understand before we ever invest a dime and increase our chances of success. So thanks for allowing me to be here. Look forward to a lot more interaction.
Thank you.